Amanda is a very effective teacher, and a lot of that lies in the fact that she really strives to create an academically challenging environment for her kids. She seeks out innovative ideas on Twitter through all of her colleagues. She reads a lot about practices that would strengthen her practice as a teacher. And she really takes all that to heart and then works those into her lessons so that her kids can really flourish and thrive in their creativity.
I think the most important part of any lesson is the relevancy, that students see that the concepts that they're learning are relevant to their life, and the application of what they're learning in their class is relevant to the things that they're going to be doing either now or when they're older. And so you need that student buy-in so that they know that what they're learning is meaningful. Okay guys, I want you to think about a time when you've been to the doctor's office for a checkup. Okay, and when you went to your doctor's office, they probably measured you, okay, to see how well you're growing. What are some ways that the doctor measured you? What information about your weight and your height, how could that be helpful to a doctor and helpful to your parents or to your family members? How do you think that that information might be helpful to them? Why do they need to know that, Gracie?
To make sure you're not sick.
Make sure you're not sick. Okay, what else, Kamaya? Make sure you're healthy. That's right. So we don't actually, you guys don't have kids, right?
I do.
First graders, no? But what do we have outside? What did we plant last week, Diana? We planted our seedlings. That's right, we planted seedlings. In order to make sure that they're healthy and that we're taking care of them the right way, we need to track their growth. So how can we measure? How can we measure our plants? Are we going to measure them using a scale?
No. Yes.
Remember, use your thumbs. Can we use them measure? Can we measure our plants using a scale? No, probably not. It might be hard. We'd have to uproot them, right? But how else can we measure them? How else can we still collect information, Reese? What could we use?
By measuring with a ruler or a cube.
Okay, we could use a ruler or some cubes. And what information will that tell us? Will it tell us how heavy our plants are?
No, it will tell us how high it is.
How high it is or how tall it is. Right, okay. So if a plant is growing, what does that tell us? How is that helpful to us? By raising your hand, how is that helpful to us? If we see that our plant is growing, how is that helpful to us, Riley?
That we know that it's healthy.
We know it's healthy. What else, Kamaya? You agree. You're using your dittos. Thank you. Reese?
That it's getting enough sun, air, and water.
It's getting enough sun, it's getting enough air, getting water. Look at all these dittos, Reese. They all agree with you. That's great. Yes, it's telling us that we're doing a great job of taking care of our garden. Before we can go measure our plants, though, we need to talk about how to measure our plants and how to use those measurement tools, okay? So take a look. You've got some cubes on your desk, and then you also have a ruler. So you have some different ways that you can measure your plants, okay? So before you put your hands on your tools, let's talk about it for just a second. In some of our other conversations that we've had, we've talked about units of measure. Like when you're talking about temperature, what's the unit of measure for temperature? Raising your hand. Would we say pounds? It's 76 pounds outside. Would you say, Cameron? Degrees. A degree is a unit of measure. So if we're measuring how tall something is, I want you guys to pick up your ruler. And just using your eyes, I want you to be a detective. Look at your ruler and see if you can find some clues on your ruler which might tell you which units of measure are on a ruler. Jude?
The cm means centimeters.
Okay, so the cm represents centimeter. Centimeter is a very long word, so cm is actually just an abbreviation, okay? So why don't you look and see if you can find cm. See if there's another clue on your ruler, Gavin, that might help you decide what other units of measure you can use a ruler for.
Yeah.
Okay, Logan?
We don't have a
Say it again.
We only have half of the word on here.
Okay, but what word is that?
Inch.
Inch. So you have 2 units of measure on a ruler. That's pretty handy, right? You have inches and you have centimeters. Now, when I say teach, I want you to turn to someone at your table and I want you guys to talk about the difference between a centimeter and an inch. I want you guys to examine your ruler. When I say teach, I want you to examine the difference between an inch
and a centimeter. So the spacing between the numbers on the inches side and the spacing between the inches sides. Class?
Yes, yes.
When I say teach, turn to a buddy, and I want you to talk about what you notice the difference between a centimeter and an inch. Ready? Go.
Okay.
We started learning about units of measure through the Georgia Framework's tasks that allow students to engage in activities that require the application of non-standard units of measure, and then later progressed into standard units of measure with this investigation.
Well, what do you notice about the difference between the inches and the centimeters? Which side is the centimeter side? Yeah, are they tiny or are they big? The centimeters, they're tiny, or is there a lot of space in between them?
They're tiny.
They are tiny, yeah. What helps me remember sometimes if I say centimeters, like they're tiny, and then the inches are wide, an inch, but there's a lot of space. Yeah, okay. Classity class?
Yes.
All right, take a look up here. Raising your hand. What did you and your partner discuss? Make sure you're raising your hand so then that way we can take turns. Riley, what did you and your partner notice about the difference between an inch and a centimeter?
We noticed that the centimeter has little tiny spaces and that the inch has big wide open spaces.
Okay, that the centimeter has tiny spaces and then the inch you said has a wide open space, and I see a lot of ditto marks, so that means that other people notice the same thing as well. So when you're measuring your plants, I want you to think about which one do you think that you will use to measure your plants, because remember, we also want to talk about being efficient. Okay, so efficient would mean what would help you decide how tall your plant is the quickest, okay, or the fastest. Would you have to count a lot of numbers with centimeters or just a few? Okay, so actually I want you to talk about that with your partner, and then I want you to explain your thinking. So if you say centimeters, I want you to tell your partner why you would choose centimeters, or if you choose inches, I want you to explain your thinking to your partner. I would choose inches to measure my plant because. Okay, and so I'm going to be walking around, Miss Peppy's going to be walking around. We want to hear your thinking, so justify your reasoning. You're going to tell me, I choose inches because, I would choose centimeters because, and explain your thinking. Class?
Yes, yes.
You're going to first take turns. One partner, tell your other partner what you would choose, centimeters or inches, to measure your plant efficiently. Ready? Go.
Collaboration is very powerful for students. I find that as a facilitator of learning that they are teaching each other, and in order to do that, they have to have the opportunity to collaborate and share their thinking with each other, but you have to create a safe environment in order for that to happen. I think it's very important to teach students, particularly at a young age, that it's okay to disagree with someone, but it's how you disagree that's important. So I tell my students that if you disagree with someone, you have to say, I disagree because, and then you justify your thinking, so that you might be able to change their mind, or you might not, but at least you have shared your thinking with them, share what you know, or I agree with you because, and then explain your thinking. I think that's very powerful for students to be able to do, but the students have to feel comfortable doing that.
Girls, which unit of measure would you choose to measure your plants?
I was listening to Aubrey's idea.
Okay, Aubrey, explain your thinking. What would you choose?
Centimeters.
Okay, you would choose centimeters. Why?
Because it would always land on its space because there's smaller spaces.
Oh, it would always land on a space or smaller spaces compared to inches. What might happen? Because you're saying you'll always land on a number, but if you're using inches, what might happen?
It might land in the middle.
Might land in the middle. And so does that make it harder to record or when you're writing it down?
Yeah,
Okay.
I changed my mind.
You change your mind. Okay, why? Tell me your thinking.
Because now this 30 is in the same spot.
I heard some really great thinking, and I had some really great conversations, and I hope that you'll share your thinking. What happens whenever I hear some really great math thinking? What does it make me do? I feel like dancing, but I want you guys to share your thinking. So Aubrey, can you share your thinking about which unit of measure you chose to think? So this group right here, you do not want to miss out on this conversation. I really want you to hear it. So Aubrey, do you mind sharing your thinking with us? What you said? So tell us, which one would you choose, inches or centimeters when you're measuring your plant? Centimeters. Why?
Because it would always land on a number.
Okay, so she said that the height would always land on a number, but how would that be more helpful to you than if you used inches? Jude, what about you? What did you guys talk about?
I chose inches because they're easier to see.
You chose inches because they're easier to see? Okay. Why?
Because they're easier to see.
Okay, because of the spacing? Okay, or because it's the way it's written on your ruler. Is it because of the spacing or?
The spacing.
Okay, all right, great. Oh, you agree. Okay. So let's get a little bit of practice though with using your tools. Now, your units would be inches or centimeters. So if you were writing that down, you have to label your number. Because if you just have a number down, Alex, if I just wrote down the number 7, well, I wouldn't know which units you guys measured with. That could be 7 inches, it could be 7 centimeters, it could be 7 cubes, or if you used another measurement tool. That would make it hard for me to know, right, Alex? That would make it hard for me to know. So you always have to label your answer. So if you were using centimeters, what would you label it with?
SCM.
CM. And then for inches, what do you notice on your ruler? How could I write 7 inches? Jude? IN. Awesome. Now look at your cubes. If you mind, put your ruler in your pencil bed. Put your ruler in your pencil bed, and I want you to grab about 10 Unifix cubes. Through the tasks that the kids had engaged in prior to this investigation, the kids had an opportunity to use other non-standard units such as paper clips or pencils. So they had prior experiences with using non-standard tools, but for this investigation, I knew that my students had not had prior knowledge of measuring plants. I went ahead and limited them to just Unifix cubes because I knew that the management of using those cubes would be much easier for measuring plants versus other objects that they had used in the past. All right, so let's go over which plants are in our bed, okay? What did we plant right over there to the very far right in front of you, Aubrey?
Kale.
Kale, and then what's right in front?
Collard
Collard greens, that's right. And then we have Brussels sprouts. Actually, this is broccoli, and then we have Brussels sprouts here, and then romaine lettuce. So whenever you're using your measurement tool, where are you going to start?
The bottom.
At the bottom of the plant. And so since there's wheat straw here, you're going to have to kind of move it back a little bit to find the very bottom of the plant, okay?
You have to do a little
All right, so show us how you're going to measure, Kamaya.
like this.
Okay. How will you know where to stop? How will you know how many units tall the plant is?
It'll reach this part.
Okay, it'll reach the top. All right, so tell us, how do you know how many units tall it is? You want to count out for me?
Yeah.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay, so it's how many units tall?
I think you have to be willing to let go of the things that make you feel successful as a teacher, like a quiet classroom or students just sitting in their desk, and be comfortable with the messiness that happens in a classroom where students are creating and collaborating with each other, because it can get messy, it can get noisy, but students are engaged and they are talking about the things that they're learning.
What are the 3 major types of weather that we have experienced? Andrew? Sunny weather. What else? Raising your hand because we want to give everybody a chance. Logan?
Rainy.
Rainy weather. Caitlin?
Stormy.
Stormy weather or cloudy weather, because we've kind of just put rainy, sunny, or cloudy. Yes, ma'am?
Sunny.
Sunny weather, okay? So what we need to do on our tally chart, on your tally chart, where it says weather type, we're going to take a look up on your chart. Put your finger where it says weather type, so then I'll know that you are right where we need to be. Put your finger where it says weather type. There you go. So you need to label your tally chart. So after you've written sunny, move on. What other type of weather have we experienced? Besides sunny weather, what else, Cameron?
Rainy.
Rainy weather. Right, rainy weather. So go ahead and label that on your chart. After you label your tally chart, go ahead and start tallying up the number of rainy days that we've experienced, the number of cloudy days that we've experienced, the number of sunny days that we've experienced. Go ahead and tally that up. Think about the information that's on your tally chart. You have down, Brooke, the number of sunny days, you have down the number of rainy days that we've had, and you have down the number of cloudy days that we've had. So now think about our garden, Reese and Justin. Think about our garden and think about all of the things that you know that plants need to grow and to be healthy. So what types of questions could you ask about our garden that someone would have to use this graph to be able to answer? For example, Reese told us, or asked, are our plants getting enough sun? Well, would they have to look at your tally chart to answer that? Yeah. What would be another question about our garden that someone would have to use this chart to answer? Ethan?
Have we got too much rain?
Have we had too much rain? I love that question. Because what could happen if our plants have had too much rain? I'm drowning. Too much water.
GPS to CCGPS has changed my instruction in that I have integrated the standards and integrated each content area much more than I ever did before, where I used to teach in blocks. We had a writing block and a social studies block, and now I have a literacy block that encompasses the science and the social studies, which are still GPS, but the way that the CCGPS standards are written, it really lends itself into a nice integration of the science and social studies standards. And so I feel like I've been able to teach in a more integrated way than a segmented way that I did before.
Once you have created your questions, how is this information, how will using this information about weather, how is that going to help us make decisions in our garden? What is the purpose of this? Why do I want you collecting the weather data every single day and looking at it? How's that going to help us, Gracie?
Garden.
So we can garden. How will that help us in our garden?
Learn more about gardening.
We can learn more about gardening.
We can know how much water we have to give them.
Right, we'll know how much water we need to give them. What else? Anything else that we'll know based on looking at the weather? Information? How much water to give them? Will we know if we put our plants in the right spot? They're getting enough sun?
I think it's also important to get creative with the resources that you're using in those lessons. Skype with an expert, connect with other classrooms through Twitter, or have your kids blog about what they're learning and invite parents and invite other students in other classrooms to read their blogs and read their posts and comment back to them, and so that they're not just collaborating with the students in their classroom, but they're collaborating around the nation, around the world.
Hi, Miss Craig.
Hey, how are you doing?
Great, how are you?
Okay. We're good. We all have, this is Miss Hanley. You can call us Miss Chrissy and Miss Lauren, that's fine.
Hi, Miss Chrissy. Hi, Miss Lauren. Can you guys say hello?
Hey guys, you heard that I'm Miss Chrissy and this is Miss Lauren, and we are talking to you from the National World War II Museum, which is in New Orleans, Louisiana. We are talking about Victory Gardens today. And our question for you guys today is, what do you think soldiers need when they're all across the world? What are some of the things they might need as soldiers? What do you
Logan?
think? And this one, I'll have you guys raise your hands and let me know.
Okay. Jude?
If you were a soldier, what would you need?
Okay, say it really loud.
Food.
Okay, so they said food.
Oh, well actually, oh man, I thought we'd go through, you guys are just so smart that you got to the answer we were looking for after your first guess. So yes, soldiers of course need food. They also need lots of other different supplies. They need equipment, but our answer we were looking for was food. I know you're planting a garden at your school. Did you know, let's say your teacher, Mrs. Cabin, told you we're planting a garden today. Would you guys know, did you know exactly what to do? Or did you need someone to help you and tell you what to do?
Ethan?
We needed help. Were the Victory Gardens used after the war? Did they only grow vegetables?
No, they didn't grow just vegetables. And obviously vegetables are pretty easy to grow, but sometimes you'd even see orchards connected with gardens, so growing apples. Down here in New Orleans, we can grow, I bet actually you guys can probably grow it too. We have similar climates. We grow a lot of citrus down here. So I heard that you guys are growing a garden at your school. I would love to hear what you guys are planting and how you guys started it.
We are going to probably have to sign off soon.
That's all right.
What do you guys say? So we've had a pretty exciting day. You guys got to Skype with Miss Gregg from the World War II Museum, where you learned about, what'd you learn about? Victory Gardens. Okay, so I want you guys to blog about that and blog about what you learned. And so you're going to work with a partner today to write about our visit with Miss Gregg and what you learned about the Victory Gardens.
Amanda's classroom has shown me that even though we limit technology in our house, that used responsibly, it's actually a very good educational tool. Then when I saw how Mrs. Cavan incorporates the basics into the blogging, you use your capital letters and with your punctuation correctly, and I saw how excited Reese got about blogging, I kind of grew to like it. And now he comes home from school and he says, can I get on Kid Blog? I want to, post something about what I learned today. So it's exciting to see them do it in the classroom when I volunteer, but then to see it carry home too, that he's really excited about what he learned in school.
Kind of encourage him to get going and talk to him about what you had to say.
What if I move it out? You don't mess me. Oh, wait. Don't even wait. Let me get it on. Get your other pencil.
It's less about the technology and it's more about the way that you're teaching, the way that you're facilitating learning, instead of just standing there and making it a sit and get, but that you're allowing the students to think critically, to collaborate with each other.
Cameron, during our discussion, if you don't mind sharing, what is it that you're going to work on? What are you looking for in your writing now? How are you going to improve your writing?
Punctuation.
With punctuation, yeah. So when I was reading through your journal entry, she had a lot of information that she learned during our Skype visit. It was wonderful. She told me all about the soldiers and the way that the food was used. But Cameron, what did you notice as I was reading? What did I keep saying over and over again? What word? And, yeah, and, over and over again. I was running out of breath because I didn't have a place to stop. So I'm glad you're going to work on that. Okay, so Diana and Ethan, tell me what you guys, during our conversation, what is something that you guys are going to work on? What are you teaching her about right now?
The commas.
Yeah, using commas in a series. So group 1, she had a list of items in her sentence, and so she's going to use commas, okay? So as you're working together, help each other out with that. Always look for ways that you can improve your own writing and then also each other's writing.
To teachers who have the perception that the things that they see happening in my classroom can't happen in their own classroom with the students that they serve, I would say that it is possible. But in order to make that happen, you have to be willing to let go of the things that traditionally make you feel successful as a teacher, like the quiet classroom where students are sitting in their desk and working only in that space. I would say that you have to let go of those things and know that project-based learning or an environment where students are creating and are learning from each other, that collaboration and that level of creating in a classroom means that students are going to have to talk to each other, and sometimes that can get noisy, and sometimes it can get messy, and your materials are going to be used, and it may look like a bomb went off in your classroom, but students are learning from that, and that those conversations that are happening are about what they're learning, and to me there's no better environment for learning than that type of environment.